Good morning, students. We are discussing on the railway and airport engineering. In the previous lecture, we have discussed about the railway stations. Well, in this lecture, we will discuss about the station yard. Well, or we can say the railway yard. Yard is a system of tracks laid out to deal with the passenger as well as the goods being handled by the railways. This will include receipt and dispatch of the trains apart from stabling, sorting, marshalling and any other functions. Okay, so this station's yard has its types such as its function, like first passenger yards, could have the goods yard, can have the marshalling yard, and also we can have the locomotives yard. Starting with the first one, that is the passenger yard. Well, the passenger platform is also known as the passenger yard. The main function of this passenger yard is to provide facilities for the safe movement of the passengers as well as the vehicle. At some of the large stations, there may be many platforms, but at a small stations, there is only a one platform near the main line. Okay, and that is we can consider as a loop line also. So that was like brief about the passenger yard. Then talking about the goods yard, a goods yard provides facilities for the reception, stabling, loading and unloading, with that also dispatching the goods wagon. Well, most goods yard deal with full train load of wagons. No sorting, marshalling and reforming is done at the goods yard except in the case of sick wagons or a few wagons that are booked for that particular station. The separate goods siding are provided with the platforms for the loading and unloading of the goods being handled at that particular stations. Now talking about the third type, and that is the most important type of yards, which is the marshalling yards. While the marshalling yard is a yard where goods trains are received and sorted out, and the new trains are formed and finally dispatched to the various destinations. This yard receives loaded as well as empty goods wagon from different stations for the further booking to different destination. While these wagons are separated, sorted out and properly marshaled and finally dispatched bearing full train load to the various destination. The marshalling of trains is so done that the wagons can be conveniently detached without much shunting the en route at the wayside stations. While talking about some type of marshalling yard, well, it can be classified into three categories, namely that flat yards, gravitational yards and the hump yard. Okay, this classification is based on the method of shunting that is used at a particular marshalling yard. Okay, so in the flat type of yard, all the tracks are laid almost level and the wagons are relocated for the sorting with the help of an engine. Well, this method is very costly as it involves frequent shunting, which requires the constant use of locomotive power. Yes, the time those required is also more as the engine has to traverse the same distance twice. Well, first to carry the wagons to the place where they are to be sorted, and then again to return the idle to the yards. Okay, this arrangement therefore adopted when there is a limitation of the space there is severe limitations of the funds and the number of wagons when the number of wagons are very low. These are we can consider as the kind of limitations of providing this flat yard, so that the limited space is been available, or we have very shortage of the funds, and the number of vegans are low. Only in these situations we prefer to provide the flat yards. Okay, the another one, that is the gravitational yard. Well, in the gravitational yard, the level of the natural ground is such that it is possible to lay some tracks at some of the gradients. Okay, well, the tracks are so laid that the wagons move to the sidings assigned for the purpose of shorting by the action of the gravity. Sometimes this shunting is being done with the help of gravity assisted by the engine powers. Well, however, it is very seldom that natural ground levels are so well suited for the gravitational yard. And the third type of marshalling yard is the hump yard. Well, in the hump yard, an artificial hump is being created by the means of proper earthwork. The wagons are then pushed up to the summit of the hump with the help of an engine, from where they are slid down and reach the sidings under the effect of gravity. A hump yard therefore can be said to be a kind of gravitational yard, as here the shunting is done under the effect of the gravity. Well, however, only recommended gradients and the particular yard is decided after a test run of the trains over the humps. Also taking into the consideration the rolling quality of different types of wagons and the spacing between the successive group of wagons is being noted. While the topography of such type of hump yards plays an important role in deciding the type of gradient or the amount of gradient that is being provided. Okay, a marshal yard should be so designed that there is a minimum detention of wagons in the yard. Okay, as such, sorting can be done as quick as possible. These yards should be provided with the necessary facilities such as the long shunting neck, properly designed hump, the braking arrangement in the shape of mechanical retarders. Okay, and all these are depending upon the volume of the traffic. Yes, so whenever we provide or we are planning to provide the marshalling yard, there are a few points that we have to keep in mind. Okay, and those are that the through traffic should be received and dispatched as expeditiously as possible. While there should be unidirectional movement of the wagons as far as possible. Also, there should be no conflicting movement of wagons and engines in the yard or in the marshalling yard. Also, the leads that permits the movement of wagons and the trains engines should be kept as short as possible. The marshalling yard should be well lighted so that surrounding visibility and the work can be done in a proper manner. Okay, also there should be adequate scope for the further expansion of the marshalling yard. Okay, because in future there may be a possibility that if number of wagons or the number of trains exceeds, so that you can accommodate those trains also for the marshalling yard. Yes, the another one, that is the locomotive yard. This is the yard which called as the houses of locomotive. Well, facility of watering, fueling, examining the locomotives, and also repairing of the locomotives can be done in the this type of yard. Okay, the yard layout is designed depending upon the number of locomotives that has to be accommodated in that house. Okay, well, the facilities are so arranged that a requisite number of locomotives are serviced simultaneously and are readily available for hauling the trains. Yes, so here all the facilities should be done properly, because occupy this yard occupy the locomotives. Okay, and if any lack of facilities is available, that will create a huge problem in the functionality of the trains, while we need the extra locomotives or while we need the change of locomotives. Yes. Well, such yards should be adequate space for shorting the fuel, and also the available amount of water should be sufficient or adequate for washing the locomotives and servicing the locomotives. Okay, so this was all about the different types of station yard or the railway yards. Okay, thank you so much, students. I hope you understand this topic properly. I will see you in the next lecture.